Hey friends, it's Michele Lemereau and welcome back. Today I have such an inspiring conversation for you. If you love hearing stories of women who are doing incredible things, especially later in life, you're going to love today's conversation. Joining us today is Alka Joshi, who is the internationally best-selling author of the Jaipur Trilogy, The Henna Artist, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and The Perfumist of Paris. Her debut novel, The Henna Artist, became an instant New York Times bestseller, a Reese Witherspoon Pick, and was longlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize. Her book has been translated into 29 languages and is currently in development at Netflix as a TV series. Alka was selected by Forbes in 2023 as one of 50 over 50 women empowering other women. Alka was born in India and came to the U.S. with her family at the age of 9. She has her BA from Stanford and an MFA from California College of Arts. Whether you're looking for some inspiration for what's next in your life or want to write a book and want to understand the process of what it takes to make that happen, this conversation is for you. I guarantee you will be inspired by Alka's story. All of the show notes and everything referenced are on your podcast player or over at thegoodlifecoach.com with an invitation to join my newsletter community, which I'd love to have you be a part of. Okay, my friends, let's dive right into the show. Here we go. Alka, I'm so happy to see you again. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Michele. I'm glad to be back.
Well, it's funny because I think last time we connected, it was during COVID or just coming out. And I had the pleasure of meeting you before you were doing a book talk at the local Barnes and Noble, and people were still wearing masks.
Some people were, yeah.
Some people still were. So we were like just coming out of that. But your book launch happened during a pandemic. And then your second book had released. And then the third one, The Perfumist of Paris, I believe, was coming out that next year.
Yeah, it was 2023 that came out. Yeah.
Yes. And I'd met you in 2022 in person. So last we connected, Henna Artist was instant New York Times bestseller. Reese Witherspoon Pick was picked up by Netflix to be produced as a series. And that was a couple years ago. So get us caught up of where things are with all of that.
Wow. I think in the last couple of years, what I've done since, the world opened up and people were so hungry to talk to authors and to hear from them outside of a Zoom screen. So I've been traveling a lot to various book events, to book festivals, wherever I get invited, I will go. Next year, I was invited to, get this, Cape Town, South Africa, and then also, I think it was someplace in Slovakia or something like that. It was very interesting. But yeah, so I travel all over the country doing book events, and it's been great to talk to so many people one-on-one. And they're so excited to tell me why the Henna Artist or the Secret Keeper of Jaipur or the Perfumist of Paris made a difference in their lives. And sometimes I get really choked up because they're telling me that the books got them through a really hard time in their lives. They were either losing somebody or grieving over somebody they had lost, or they were just going through a hard time in their own lives. And they said it really, there's something about the characters, there's something about the hopefulness at the end of each book that really sustains them and makes them feel like the life is going to be okay. And hearing those stories personally, I get them through emails, but hearing it one-on-one, I always get teared up. I'm just so amazed that the work, which I was just doing to reflect my mother's life or my father's life or the life in India post-independence, that has grown into a much larger thing for most readers to relate to.
Absolutely. You're such a beautiful writer. Your characters are so rich and interesting, and you just go along this beautiful journey with them. And it's going to be incredible when it hits Netflix, because if people are saying this to you now and they're impacted, it'll be really interesting once it's, something people are binging on TV. I cannot wait. So give us an update. When do you know when's it going to release, or what can you tell us?
So I don't know when it's going to release because I'm not on a day-to-day basis involved in it. But
Yes.
I get the reports and I get scripts to look at. And I'm learning a lot about the process of doing a series. So what happens is that the producers went to the various streaming platforms that can do episodic series. And they said, hey, here's the Henna Artist. We really want to produce it into a series. And then these various streaming companies give an offer and they go, okay, we'll give you this much money to produce it and so on. Netflix won out of 5 different streaming platforms that wanted to produce the Henna Artist.
Okay.
And so it went to Netflix. Now, the producers have enough money in the kitty to start hiring writers. So they hire writers, and then the writers put scripts together. They put a pilot together and a sort of overview of the entire season. So that gets sent back to Netflix. Netflix makes notes on that and makes desired changes and suggestions. That gets sent back to the writers. And then the writers redo those scripts, send them to the producers. The producers send their notes back to the writers. And then the writers do it again. The producers say, okay, now we can send it back to Netflix. Netflix gives notes again. And the process continues. So now you can see how involved everybody is in
Yes.
the process. But what's
Okay.
good about that, Michele, is that everybody's so invested in making this a great product. And that's
Yes.
what I love about, the people who are involved. It's not so much tedious for them as, are we carrying forward the essence of this book? Are the characters still maintaining integrity to the kind of characters they were in the book? And I so appreciate having Netflix as a partner because their folks that are working on the Henna Artist are very careful about making sure that it's authentic.
Yeah, I'm sure that's so important to you. I mean, you poured your heart. Your first book was, in fact, a love letter to your mom, the henna artist. So I can imagine, especially, seeing how those characters are going to be developed. So do they buy the book and then they can basically do what they want with it? How does that part work?
So they buy the book and then
Or
they
the
have
rights to the
the,
book? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are they buying the
yeah,
rights to reproduce the book as a
yes,
series? Is that really it? Yeah.
that's it exactly. What they bought was the right to make a screen adaptation from the book. And
Okay.
here's something else I've learned. Adaptation means it's not word for word what the book is.
Yeah.
It's an adaptation because they are now converting paper form into a visual form that people can relate to on their screens. Now, what that means is you have 300 pages of a book where a lot of the main character, is thinking about things. They are thinking about how they're reacting to someone or what they want
Yes.
in their lives and so on. Now, you can't show somebody sitting there for a half an hour on screen thinking about things.
So
So, what
true.
they have to do to fill in a series, like 6 episodes or so, they have to add scenes to show what the characters are thinking. And then that means necessarily that sometimes they have to add characters to flush out those scenes because maybe the bank of 10 main characters is not going to carry 6 episodes. So that's kind of why they have to adapt and make things a little bit different. Sometimes they change the ages of the characters. Now, something like that
Oh,
is because,
interesting.
yeah,
Yes.
when you have
Okay.
child actors in something,
Yes.
you have a set number of hours you can work with a child actor per day. You also have to have an appropriate adult on set all the time for those people.
Okay.
So it becomes expensive for the production. And this is why I think oftentimes you see 24-year-olds playing a 16-year-old
Mm.
in movies and in television. And I was always surprised by that, surprised to find that this person I thought was 16 is actually in real life 24 years old.
It's like we had my daughter watch Grease and she's like, they all look so old. And you look it up. They were like some of them were 30.
Right,
So yeah, I never
exactly.
thought about that.
Exactly, exactly.
That's
So
why.
sometimes They change ages. Sometimes they change the setting because the setting will be too expensive for them to produce, like in New York. And so they'll go to Toronto, which is simulates New York in a way. They'll go there, or they'll go to Calgary, where if they have a Western scene and it would be too expensive to produce in Texas, they'll go up to Calgary because it has the
Got
same
it.
kind of landscape. So
Yes.
sometimes they have to do that too. And I think in the case of the henna artist, it's taking place in Jaipur. I think it would be very difficult for them to recreate Jaipur in the United States or even in Canada. So I think
Okay.
they're going to have to go to India in order to film it, which I'm really hoping they do because then I get to go along.
Yes. Yes. I know. And when I met you, I said they need to write like a role for you in it. You're so gorgeous and vibrant. And I just remember when we were sitting that day, there's like a woman and her husband, and she was just like so drawn to you. I was like, I know, she's magnetic. Like and remember, do you remember that? I'm like, she's an amazing, author. You need to pay attention and go get her book
Oh,
immediately. So
that's
it's
sweet.
just funny, but I really could see you. And is that in the cards or no?
Oh, that's like way far down the line. Once they actually have scripts, maybe, oh,
Yes.
okay, you can be the person sitting in this
It'd be
store
fun.
while we have characters talking.
Totally. It would be fun. I don't know. I'd love to see you in just even if in the background somewhere, just I don't know. Or a small role. But that's just my desire for you because I think it would be really cool. And you know who the lead actress is, right? But that's it.
Yeah, Frida Pinto. And she and I text back and forth because sometimes there are things that she wants to ask about something that's in the book, or she wants to tell me, hey, we're about to send these scripts over to Netflix again. Do you have any notes for us? You want to, send us anything? So, yeah,
Really
she is
cool.
super, super nice. And I think the more I get to know her, the more I realize she is perfect for this role because she's very calm. She's very centered, the way that Lakshmi is centered. Like we all love Lakshmi because
Of course.
we all want to have a friend like Lakshmi to take us through hard times in our lives.
Totally. Totally. Well, I think this is a cool place to maybe think about. So one of the reasons and I'm grateful that you're back to share, is you published, so you started writing at 51, you published at 62. Here you are, you're gonna be
66.
you're 66 now. Okay, you're gonna have a Netflix series launching. You've got your fourth book coming out next year. You can tell us the title of that, right? Tell us what you can tell us about the next book.
Okay, it's called 6 Days in Bombay. Now, this was a novel that I started before I did the second book. I
Oh.
started this novel. I went to New Delhi. I did research because it's inspired by an artist that isn't that well known here in the West.
Hmm.
And it was a young woman who was half Hungarian and half Indian.
Oh.
And she spent most of her training in Europe because that's where they lived, in Hungary. So she was taught in Paris. She was taught in Florence. She had painting tutors. She became the youngest member to be admitted to the Paris Salon. And then eventually she realized that in Europe, she was up against these male figures. She was
Yeah.
up against Picasso and Matisse and Leger. And so she decided maybe I need to go somewhere else and establish my art there. Because her father was Indian, she went to the south of India. She traveled all through India and she finally settled in the south for her painting. And she started making scenes of villagers doing ordinary things, women
Hmm.
getting ready for a wedding,
Hmm.
the brahmacharis, the religious men sitting around in a circle, maybe talking about an Sanskrit text. Uh,
Yes.
there were villagers going to market. So she really felt that these were some of her best works. And she used all of the techniques she had learned in Europe to form these large canvases, just enormous. I saw them at the National Gallery in Delhi. And
Wow.
I'm going to use this woman as an inspiration to start this novel. But with the second novel, Malik was in my head so much, and I had to start writing his novel. And then the
Yes.
third novel with Radha as the center came along in The Perfumist of Paris. So I'm going back now to this novel that I wanted to write that is inspired by this painter. And her name was Amrita Sher Gill.
Okay.
Partly why I am fascinated by her is that she was India's Frida Kahlo. She was larger than life. She loved clothing and jewelry and red lipstick, and she was flamboyant, and she was very promiscuous. And she went either way. She was bisexual. Even
Okay.
after her marriage, she was bisexual.
Okay.
She just had a spark that I think most of us are too scared to have, or we get repressed. We're like, no, 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 you must be quiet, you must smile a lot, and you must do this and all. She just disregarded all of that. And it could be because she was born of privilege. So she had money, she could do whatever she wanted. So my main character is inspired by her. And Amrita in real life died at the age of 28 in 1941.
Oh,
That
wow.
is how amazing she was. It was an era in which women were not allowed to be whatever they wanted to be. But why did she die so early? It's very mysterious. Everything that I have read does not explain it. There are theories, but there's no major explanation.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So I wanted to, in this next book, 6 Days in Bombay, explore how this woman died. My protagonist is Sona, the night nurse who is taking care of this painter inspired by Amrita. Uh, Sona is reticent. She has led a very small life, and she is also half Indian and half British. So they bond over this dual identity that they both have. Sona is taking care of this painter as she is in the hospital. And in 6 days, she gets to know her really well. In the sixth day, she dies mysteriously, just as Amrita did in real life at the
Oh,
hospital.
wow.
Hilna, the nurse, is blamed because they know how much time she spends with her. They said, you've been careless. She loses her job. But after Mira's death, the painter, she is bequeathed 4 paintings by her and a cryptic note that then leads her to travel through Europe, meeting the many lives and lovers and friends of the painter.
Oh my gosh. When can we buy the book? Because this is so just so everyone who's listening, because I don't know when this is going to air. This interview September of 2024. The book's coming out when?
April 15th of next year.
Okay.
So
Are
in
pre-orders
2020,
open yet or not yet? It's too
yeah, the
early.
pre-orders are open. So yeah, and pre-orders are everywhere, right? At your local bookstore, on Amazon, Costco,
Oh, this
whatever,
is
Target.
fascinating. I cannot wait to read this one. What a fun book
And
for you to write because you get to make you get to give her some closure.
yes. So last year, what I did was I traveled for the month of May. I traveled to all the places that Sona, the protagonist, is traveling. Istanbul, Prague, Paris, Florence, London, and then back to Bombay. And we're
Wow.
calling it Bombay because the year all of this is taking place is 1937. And Bombay was not called Mumbai until 1995.
Wow. Wow, this
So
is so cool.
yeah. So I think there's so many things I learned in the making of this next novel. One of them was that in 1937, there's all this rumbling in India about ousting the British. There's a lot of underground movements going on, and I mentioned those in the book. Then Sona goes to Europe, and guess what? There's all these resistance movements going underground to get rid of the Nazis and the fascists. And so she is in this tumultuous period in both areas of her life.
Wow.
And she herself is experiencing a lot of, anxiety and this kind of dual identity question and whatever happened to her dad, because he disappeared after 3 years in her life in India. Where did he go? Is he still alive? So she gets a chance to explore that. while she's traveling, and she gets a chance to see all of this underground movement that's going on, and anxiety in the European lives. And then she comes back and then has to handle the anxiety of what happened to this painter. How did she die so mysteriously in the hospital? So,
Oh, cool. No, please. I love what's so beautiful about fiction is just like the telling, like as you're telling the story, it's so real. It's just
oh,
so
good.
real. It's so
Oh,
beautiful and so exciting. Like you've just taken us along this journey and you've made it so tangible, like it's real.
well,
Even if it is based on somewhat of a true story, but now you've taken it and you've kind of figured out what happened to her based on your creative mind.
yes, exactly. And I think that that is a comment I get a lot from readers. Wow, I felt like I was there. I was hearing what the protagonist is hearing. I was smelling what the protagonist is smelling. I was touching what they're touching. And so for me, that is the wonderful thing about writing. That part comes really natural to me to make it a sensory experience for readers. And
Yeah.
the harder part is how does the plot going to come together? How is it going to, happen? What helped me a lot and what always helps me is the research. So when I was in Europe for the month of May, I was meeting with archivists. I met with art historians and academicians and various writers because they're in that milieu and they can really help me figure out in 1937 what was happening and what did it feel like, what did it smell like, what was it like to be there. They've already done all the work. All I have to do is interview them.
I love it. And then they create a picture in your mind and then it starts crystallizing. Well, it's interesting that story and the contrast between this young woman who sadly, well, we don't know what happened to her, but this artist who was living so full on and was fully had such agency. And then was it Sonia is the nurse?
Sona is
Sona. So Sona is the nurse, and she doesn't have that agency yet. Being accused of the death actually sets her on a journey of exploration. And it's funny because I'm going to read something to you from the Henna Artist, because this is one of like I said, so the invitation today for the women listening, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, here you are at 66, all these things still unfolding, your writing career is still blossoming. We're getting the benefit of your beautiful work. And there's so many women who are wanting more of that artist life, maybe not full, like, to that extreme, but more owning more of themselves. And then so many of us are stuck like Sona, who have maybe dreams and ambitions, but we've been conditioned to be the good girl and to do things a certain way and don't know how to break free. So in your book, The Henna Artist, on this, in the beginning of the page, you write, the traveler has to knock at every alien door to come to his own, and one has to wander through all the outer worlds to reach the innermost shrine at the end. From the poem Journey Home, and you'll tell me how to pronounce this.
Rabindranath Tagore.
I didn't want to, yes. So beautiful. And actually the second one, when the goddess of wealth comes to you, I'm sorry, when the goddess of wealth comes to give you her blessing, you shouldn't leave the room to wash your face, which is an Indian proverb. I was kind of reflecting on both of those for this conversation because they tell that story. I mean, the first one, what it says to me, and I'd love your interpretation, is it is an invitation. Sometimes you're sort of wandering about sort of aimlessly, just when you could just sit within yourself, and the calling is right where you are, wherever you are. And this, but you tell me, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I think that at an older age, so, you're 45, you're 55, you're 65, you're 75, you have lived a long life. You have knocked on a lot of doors and you have so many experiences about love, loss, grief, sadness, happiness that you can now mine that for your art, whether you're a writer or a painter or a dancer. You have so much in you that you probably don't even realize. And this is why it's good to take the time at a later age to think about everything that has happened in your life. One of the best ways to do that is to write about it. just write about the most exciting thing that happened to you, the saddest thing that happened to you, the most sort of joyous thing, and the one that helped you become a better person. Write about those kinds of things. You will find yourself starting to write, thinking, oh, I have nothing to say. You'll write 10 pages before you realize it. So I think that first quote by Tagore is about the fact that we have amassed so much experience, and the more experience we amass, you are the traveler who has arrived at the place that you need to be.
Beautiful.
The more you can share those experiences with other people, the richer your art becomes.
Yes.
And the more it means something to other people.
Yes.
And then, the second part about opportunity, I think that we are in our lives presented with opportunities every single day. We're just not tuned into them. So, for example, let's say that you're walking down the street and you see something in a shop window and you think, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me go in and look at it. Maybe it's a vintage store. And then you go in and you get this, you pull it off the shelf and you go, I wonder who made this. Now you can either just say, this is interesting, maybe I'll buy it, maybe we won't, and walk out of the store. But what if you took the time to figure out who made this? Why did they make it? What was their life all about? Now, that's an opportunity to investigate. And if you pay attention to these kinds of things that are happening, and then you actually follow these rabbit holes, I think that that's an opportunity to grow within yourself and maybe to add to your art, whatever it is that you want to make.
I love it. And that's what you did because you had the curiosity about this artist that you said most of us here in the West we've never heard of her. And sadly, she did die so young. So, now you followed her story and now you're telling it through your eyes, which is so cool. And that's the beauty of fiction. Now, so many people who have a dream of writing a book. We know this, the stats are out there, but I think it's like 99% don't. So, for anyone who is listening today who has that dream, and I think I told you before the mics went on, I've had a book in me for 10 years. I stopped it. There's about 50 pages. And I'm like, this story needs to be told, or these characters are going to leave me because I think sometimes they show up from a place of curiosity based on what's happening in your life and want this expression through some more magical, creative, fun form. So what advice do you have if somebody's out there thinking like, where do they begin? Like you ended up getting an MFA program. Does somebody need that? Where do they start?
Where you start is you start writing. And it's harder to do than you think, but you need other people around you to help you do that and to maintain the course of writing. So the only way that I have ever found to be able to do that is to get yourself in a situation where you have a writing workshop or you have an MFA program, a Master's of Fine Art and Creative Writing, where you'll be forced to turn in work every single week. Or maybe you join a writers group where you are held accountable by the other writers in the group to produce something and to show those pages to everybody and to get feedback. Either one of those or all three of those is going to get you feedback. And that's what you're looking for. In your writing, you want people to be able to either understand why you're writing something, what you want them to take away. And so you get the kind of feedback that you're looking for. And if you get feedback that says, hey, this is really interesting, I didn't know anything about it, or this protagonist is doing things that really are going to resonate with me, then you know you've got something and you can keep going. You need feedback in order to make your work better and in order to really know how other people are resonating with it. So any one of those three avenues would be really helpful to anybody starting to write. The next thing about those three avenues is that you are held accountable. You have to produce work. You cannot just show up and critique other people's work if you're not being critiqued yourself. And you learn when you're critiquing other people and they're critiquing you, you learn how to look at work. So you can pick up any book after that and go, okay, do I believe the protagonist? Is this an authentic story? Can I relate to it? Can I make it all through the 300 pages and really feel like I learned something through it? Now, it could just be a life lesson. It doesn't have to be like historic or anything like that.
Yes.
That's kind of, it teaches you how to evaluate work, writing work, other people's and yours, which is, I think, super helpful.
Yes. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that's how you got started too, right? And you got great feedback. Your teachers were like, Alka, you've got a gift.
Yeah. And when you get that feedback, you go, okay, I guess I can keep going. If I had
Yes.
received a different kind of feedback, I might have thought, oh, maybe this isn't for me, maybe another art form, maybe I need to paint or draw or do poetry or dance or whatever. But it was good to get that feedback. My husband had always given me that feedback. He had always said, honey, you really know how to write. And I just poo-pooed him for so long. I said, no, no, no. It's just I'm just doing this for money. I'm doing this because I put together a marketing campaign or a TV commercial. I just do this for money. I am not going to do this, as an author of literary fiction. And he was always like, I know you're going to do it. It's really going to work.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Now he's a writer too. Did you share that
He
last
is.
time? So
He is a writer.
he knows good writing.
Yes, he's a beautiful writer. I think he's far better writer than I will ever be because he has an ability to choose every single word in a sentence that makes it beautiful. And he is also able to communicate a lot in one sentence because he chooses those words so carefully. So he's always been a short story writer, but he has just written his first novel,
Oh,
and it's
that's
taking place in
exciting.
Haiti. And it's drawn from his experience as a Foreign Service officer in Haiti. And I can't wait to see it in print. I'm hoping that we will find a publisher for him because, he's also, what is he, 68? He's 68. So the time is of the essence. Get it out there.
I love it. I love it. And this is the invitation. It's not too late. And if you feel called to write, I don't think everyone does feel called to write. So if you have that and you're getting feedback, and it's interesting because I've told a couple of different people, like, you have such a gift. And it's interesting how people are very quick to say, no, no, no. There's something about writing that opens up some level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Do you think? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because a lot of, aspiring writers will tell me, I want to incorporate pieces of my life and my family life in here, but they're all still alive. What if they see themselves in this? What if they get mad at me? What if it's embarrassing for them? And I always say, well, every single writer is going to put themselves and pieces of people they know in each of the characters. Now, that doesn't mean that they're lifting an entire person from their life into this character so everybody will go, oh, that's who that character is.
Right.
No, it's always a combination of a lot of different characteristics. So no one will actually recognize the characters that you have in your fiction account because you won't exactly be lifting them, into one of your people. Um, I think it's interesting in the henna artist, people keep asking me, how does your dad feel about this book? Because they do somehow think that the abusive husband of Lakshmi is my dad. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, 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 this is not my dad. This is a character I invented because I needed for Lakshmi to have a reason to leave her marriage. And
Yes.
one of the foremost reasons for a woman leaving her marriage is that she's being abused, either emotionally or physically.
Yes.
So that is one of the things that does happen. People will assume different things, but you get a chance to tell them, no, this isn't that particular character. This is somebody that I had to invent for a fictional trope.
Well, let's dive more into that because I think, from my experience, the characters talk to you. It's like they're alive within your imagination, and they want you to know their story. And part of it is from your own experiences. I can feel that, but part of it is like so not. So did you find this, and can you speak more to this?
That is such an important point, Michelle, because it is true that the characters take over after a while. If you have developed your characters really extensively, they will take over. One of the best things that I did and that a professor encouraged me to do is to do a character Bible. So for every main character, I have a Bible that tells me who their parents were. I'm making this up, right? But
Yeah.
I make up who their parents were, where they were born, what is their favorite food, what did they learn in school, did they enjoy school, where did they go after school, who their friends are, what brand of tobacco they smoke, what is it that they want in their lives. You do this whole character Bible for
Wow.
every single one of them, and they will come alive for you.
Oh,
You
I
have
just
this image. All of a sudden, you know who they are. And they will start telling you what they want to do and where they want to go as you're writing. The other thing, a great piece of information that I got, a great suggestion from one of my instructors, is to make a visual Bible as well. So I scour the internet. I have a character look in my mind. I scour the internet for somebody who kind of looks like what I imagine them to be, and I have them in front of me as I'm writing about them. So I have the Bible, and then I have the image, and they come alive on the page.
that is so cool. Maybe that's why your books are so relatable and inviting, and like what you said, people say you help them
Yeah.
because you really spent so much time crystallizing who that character is to its core, as if it were a real person,
Yes.
and they come
I'll
alive in the book for us.
Yes. And I'll tell you something interesting. In the Henna
Yes.
Artist, I have this charming philanderer named Samir Singh.
Yes.
And the readers are just charmed by him. Now, the visual that I put up for Samir, he's practically bald and he's handsome, but he's not handsome, right? He's not like a Brad Pitt handsome. He's, good looking enough. Well, when the readers tell me about him or they start talking about him, they think he is super attractive. They think he is like a Brad Pitt. And so sometimes you will develop a character who, in your mind, looks like this and acts like this. But your readers, when they read it, will imbue other characteristics to them and maybe have a whole different idea of what they look like and act like. Isn't I thought that was fascinating.
That
Not
is
only are they
interesting.
yeah, not only are the characters changing on the page and doing things, but then your readers are going to look at them in a whole different way as well.
That is so cool because their own imaginations take over, right? It's like reading a book versus seeing something on the screen. When you watch the movie, they've decided for you what you're supposed to visualize for that character. But when you're reading, your imagination gets to fill in the blanks, which is what's so powerful about fiction. That's like, I think that's the draw of it. What about names? That's also we were talking about just briefly. I feel like the names come to me too. But tell us about names
Yes.
and how you said names are important. Why is that?
Names are so important. And sometimes the names will just come to you as an author. But I think it behooves us as writers to pay attention to what names we are giving people. And in my case, in my books, which are taking place in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I knew that the women at that time were named after gods and goddesses. So it was important for me to name Lakshmi as she's the goddess of wealth and prosperity. So I named my main character Lakshmi. It would have been a very normal name to give her. Her sister is named Radha, who is the courtesan of Krishna. Well, they call her, what do they call her? Consort. They call her the consort of Krishna. There are all kinds of stories about Lord Krishna where she's almost a concubine. Sometimes she's just a friend. So, you never know. But in the book, in the Henna Artist, she is a consort of Ravi, right? The
Okay.
thing's son. So that made a lot of sense to me. And then Samir is a very easy name, and it means something that really characterized Samir's personality. And then I could shorten it to Sammy, which is kind of a cute little,
Playful. Yeah.
yeah, playful diminutive. Um, Let's see who else. Kanta is named after one of my aunts, if you can believe
Oh,
it.
that's cool.
I love her. She has such a sweet personality, and so does Kanta. She's very generous, she's sweet, she's loving, and that's who my aunt is. So, yeah, names do matter, and they do come into play in people's personalities on the page.
Okay, this is so cool. And do you have a writing practice? I know you said you were in the MFA program. There was the accountability, which is huge, but also I know undergrad you went to Stanford. I would imagine you're very, I don't want to speak for you. I would imagine you know how to structure your time and that you have some level of discipline to create success. You've pivoted 4 times in your career, and each time has been successful. So you've got you've got some structure, that's something that you do. So share with us the mindset or like how you organize your time.
Yeah. One of the things I think I learned really early on are deadlines. It's very important. When I was growing up and a teacher said, this is due on this date, I would get it done on that date. And then as I got into jobs, clients say, I need this by such and such a time. So I work backwards from there. How much time do I need to accomplish that? How much time do I need to ask the questions and do the research? And then how can I make sure that I meet that deadline? So, because so many other people are depending on that deadline. Um,
Yes.
and then when I got into publishing, there's an editor who tells you here is when it's going to be published. Here is here is when we need the final draft. Here is when we need the manuscript that will be actually typeset, because there's a difference between you turning in your draft and then the final edit that's done on it.
Okay.
So I know what my deadlines are and I meet all my deadlines. It is so important. It's also a sign of respect because other people are wanting something from you at a certain time. How rude would it be to not meet their deadlines? How
Yeah.
rude would it be to say, oh, I know this matters to you, but it doesn't matter that much to me that I get it in
Yes.
on time? I
Yes.
think deadlines were very helpful to me in every single career. And I think doing good work is very helpful. If I have to work weekends, if I have to work nights, I have always done that. A lot of people clock off at 5 on Friday and they're not going to look at work until Monday. And you
No.
and I know that that's not the way to get ahead in life.
No.
Successful people will work as much as they need to work in order to meet those deadlines, in order to get things done.
Yes.
So I do that as well. Um, in my career, one of the things I learned in the last career I had, which was to run my advertising and marketing agency for 20 years, that if you have a client that is presenting problems, no, I don't know, like they're really difficult to work with, it's okay to let go. It's okay to find an elegant way to say, you know what, here's somebody I think you could work with who might be a better fit for you. Maybe I am not the right fit for you. And so some of that I put into Lakshmi's life in The Henna Artist. So
Oh,
yeah. So the way that she deals with difficult clients, and Parvati is a very demanding, difficult client, Lakshmi finds ways to negotiate what she wants also from these demands that Parvati has. So, this is another example of how we put ourselves as writers in all of the different characters. There's certain things that we know how to do just because we have lived a long life.
absolutely. And also when you have such joy in your work, I think working on a weekend or whatever, it's part of your joy too. Is that right? Would you say that
Yes.
that's right? Yes.
Absolutely. There's
Yes.
no greater pleasure than when I am in my world with my characters and sort of pulling the strings about what they're going to be doing. Because I am just like the reader is, I am in that world. I am physically right there walking lockstep with the characters. And
Yeah.
that is really joyful. I
Yeah.
think if you're not having fun with it, don't write.
I think, yes, I agree with that. I was saying to a friend, I said, it's so interesting because when I'm actually giving, and it's weird, I'm going to use these words, give myself permission to do it because it feels almost indulgent. It's so blissful. And I think, well, why am I not allowing for more of that? Why do I think it needs to be harder? I don't know. It's funny how we
Yeah.
do that to ourselves.
I was on a panel once with three other writers, and one of them had gone to that wonderful program in Iowa, the Iowa Writers Program. It's very hard to get into, just like that Stanford Stegner program is very hard to get into.
Yes.
And so she was obviously very qualified as a writer already when she got into the program. So
Yes.
this was her first novel after the program. And so many times during the panel, she talked about how hard it was to write, how difficult it was to craft the story and make the characters into what they are. I was listening to her and I thought, why is she so tortured? And I think that there is a supposition that you have to be tortured in order to be an artist.
Mhm.
Don't. You just don't. You can have a happy life and
Yeah.
still be able to write literary fiction, to create a painting, to, create dance or music or whatever. You don't have
Yes.
to be tortured. I have met so many wonderful artists in all different fields, as I've been doing this, who are happy and joyous about what they're doing. They're not
Yeah.
tortured. So,
Yeah. That's great advice. And when I'm in the book, I'm so blissful. And that's why I'm like, why am I withholding that from myself? That's so silly.
right.
It seems silly to do that. So remind me, for a fiction book, do you have to have the whole manuscript done to submit versus nonfiction you have, or is it the opposite? I always forget which is which.
When I started, you had to have the whole manuscript done.
Yeah.
So back when I first started writing The Henna Artist and got it to an agent, I must have been 55. And we had to submit the entire manuscript because the publisher needs to know you could finish a whole story, right? They don't know you from Adam.
That's true.
Yeah. So
Yes.
if you just submitted a couple of pages or one chapter, they don't know whether you can finish that. They don't want to give you a contract that you will not be able to fulfill.
Yeah.
So that's why they did that. Now, in recent time, like maybe in the last year, I have heard from different authors that they didn't have to submit the entire manuscript. And I don't really know how a publisher then decides, yes, you can fulfill that. For my
Interesting.
second, third, fourth books, I only had to submit 20 pages or even a synopsis because by then they go, okay, she knows what she's doing. She hands are working on time. She can finish a whole story. So subsequent books, you don't have to do that. But I think for a debut novel,
Yeah.
you should probably try to finish the whole thing. And if you have a very good agent, they're going to demand that you finish the entire manuscript. At least that's been my experience. Maybe other people have had a different experience, but I think your agent also needs to know that you can finish a book.
Absolutely. And after the success of the Henna Artist and everyone just fell in love with it, right? I mean, it's just instant New York Times bestseller. I mean, people just knew when they read it, I'm sure, right within the publishing world that this was something special. So
Right.
20 pages from you, probably from then on, is sufficient. They know that you can get it done.
It was so cool. I don't know if I told you this, but when before the Henna Artist was published, they gave me the second book contract before the Henna Artist was even published. So
Wow.
they
That's
knew that
huge.
yeah, that is huge. It doesn't usually happen. My agent told me it's really rare because at that point, I think they were just convinced this is going to sell a lot. And then they invited me out to the offices, to the headquarters in New York and then in Toronto of HarperCollins. I go there. The lobby has the Henna Artist cover everywhere. The book hasn't
Oh my
printed,
God.
but they have the cover printed. It's everywhere. And then I am, in this conference room. We have views of, the skyline and everything. And there's a huge conference table, and they have a cake in the shape of the graphic of the Henna Artist cover. And then 45 people are gathered around this table, and they are making a champagne toast. So they come around, they give me the glass. And, I don't drink very much. And
Yeah.
so I said, oh no, thank you, because it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going. And so
10 a.m.
I felt the room deflate. I felt it. And I go, no, no, okay, wrong answer. Please give me a glass. And so then they all made a toast, and then they had me do videos, and, they had they had journalists in to talk to me and everything.
Oh.
And so when they were putting me back on the taxi to take me to the airport, I said to my handler, I said, Randy, you really treat your authors well. And he goes, oh, Alka, we don't do this for every author. We're doing this for you because we know the Henna Artist is going to be a big deal.
And they were right. And they were right. I mean, look where you are today. That's so beautiful. What a nice experience for you to have. It's magical what you're describing. And also like in midlife, right? I mean,
Validation. Yeah.
it's huge validation. That's huge validation. So that's encouraging. And you loved the process. Like you weren't
Yes.
thinking you were going to be this writer. Your husband was like, you have a gift. But you dove right in. See, I mean, you did go to the MFA program. Tell us about your mindset when you're approaching something new. Because like I said, you did pivot four times. So talk to us about your mindset when you're approaching something.
I never think that I'm too old or I'm not right for this program. I have never thought that age would define me. I think that's just something that I have. My father changed professions a couple of different times. He was always an engineer, but in India, he was building roads and bridges. In the United States, he was getting his doctorate. Then he got his first job where he was a soils engineer. And then he went to teach at the University of Calgary, and he was a
Wow.
geotechnical engineer and manned their entire graduate program. So I think seeing somebody like that who has done so many different things, it never made me shy about trying something new.
Hmm.
The most anybody can say to you if you try something new is, no, thanks, we don't need this. And I never got that, right? They were like, oh, well, this is interesting. Let's see what else you've got. Let's see what you can do. And I think anybody who is thinking about changing careers or changing their mindset at a certain time in their life, even if it's an older mindset, I think you can do it. It's just taking the time to learn it and then to practice it. I think that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is there anything that we should know too about the book writing process? Anything that surprised you? Anything that you wished you had known before you had started?
Well, that's interesting. I don't think there is anything that has surprised me. I assumed that I would be going and talking to um, book clubs and doing book signings at bookstores and talking to libraries. I just assumed that would happen because I had done so many presentations as somebody who ran my own agency. So I was used to doing something like that. I think that maybe the only thing that surprised me, and this was a really great surprise, is the number of people who actually want to sort of be in my presence
Ah,
after they have read the book. They
yes.
feel like they know me, which is so interesting. And they want to take pictures with me when they come for book signings.
Yeah.
That is just amazing. I am so touched by the intensity of readers when they love a book. I'm just
Yes.
touched by the intensity. And I don't know that I felt like that. Maybe I did as a reader, but now we can completely see authors in a way that I don't think we could see before. And also with Zoom, we're able to talk to authors that we never used to be able to talk to before. They were sort of behind this gatekeeping by the agencies, by the publishers. We never could, interact with them one-on-one. So that's been a real treat. And kind of a surprise that people do want to have that one-on-one experience. And then the whole Zoom thing has really, I think, expanded the reach that we authors have. We actually can talk to our readers. One of the things I always ask when I've done these Zooms, and I've done 900 Zooms so
My
far
God,
on,
Elka.
the virtual floor format. But one of the things that always surprises me, or that is a wonderful thing about Zoom, is that readers share with me what they want me to write about next. Right? Where would I get that kind of, feedback? But they say, oh, this character, I think that they could do this, this, and this. How about writing about that?
Oh,
Or,
cool.
oh, you know what? I really responded to this particular character. And what if you just went off and did a whole series just on them? So I love that kind of feedback, and the insights that readers have surprised me because I hadn't even had those insights into the characters, the way that they're relating to one another. I'm blown away by some of those really prescient comments that readers make.
I love it. And how important is social media? Did you have a presence? I know you do now. I mean, and you did 900 book clubs. And in fact, I'll just give a shout out to Susan Greats, a woman in my community. Never met her. She sent me an email. She's on my newsletter list. She's like, have you heard of this author? She spoke to our book club. That's how I learned of you. I
Wow.
started investigating. I was like, oh, she's fascinating. This is amazing. She's accomplished all this. This fits like the theme of the show. I would love to interview her. And here we are, a second interview. So thank you, Susan, if you're listening. If you're so it's interesting how we get connected, but the social media piece.
So I was not a social media person at all. But a year before the Henna Artist was published, so this would have been 2019,
Yeah.
she said, my editor said, please, Alka, you have to get on social media. In this day and age, you have to, as an author, have that presence. And I really went into it kicking and screaming because I was never a
Interesting.
big fan.
Not, yeah.
I didn't want to tell everybody, that I had chicken for dinner, or here's a picture of me doing my garden or anything like that. I just thought that's not very interesting to me. But then I started to realize that Instagram is where a lot of book people hang out. And
Yeah.
readers are looking on Instagram for things that they could read next. Next thing that happens is a year later, the Henna Artist comes out, and a day after it comes out, we have a major pandemic that's announced, and nobody can go to bookstores or libraries. Guess what? We still have the internet. And
Amazing.
so I had by then probably about 3,000 followers because I've been telling them about Indian food, the recipes that are in the books. I was telling them about Indian rituals. I was telling them about my mother and the saris and the jewelry she wore, all of this stuff that is really rich. And so people were interested. They were like, oh, well, I didn't know this about India. I didn't know that. And so I had about 3,000 followers. So when the world shut down, I said to them, please call me. Please, I really need to talk to you about this novel because I don't get a chance to go now anywhere. I have not even had a book launch, please. And so people really were kind, and they responded, and they said, I have a book club, and then I'm in 2 book clubs. Oh, I know that this friend of mine is in another book club. And it just mushroomed from there, just mushroomed.
But I'm also going to give you credit for the fact that you did put on your marketing hat. You wrote a very special book. The world went into a shutdown, never experienced this in our lifetime. And you found a way to connect with the readers in a meaningful way, even if it's over Zoom. And they got to hear your story, which I think that's part of the appeal, Alka, is you're just so inspiring. Everything you've done and you're continuing to do. You're 66. Netflix series is coming out soon enough, and you're continuing to write. So I just think it's beautiful. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to leave the women listening with in terms of their journey, whether they're pivoting to write or just make it a part of their life or embrace a more creative path or just do something totally different?
Trust yourself. Don't be your worst enemy. I do think that sometimes we women are quick to say, no, I'm not all that. No, I can't really do that. Or, oh, I've got all these other obligations with my children and my grandchildren. They can't possibly make time for all of this, but you can, and you should. You have to be front and center in your life. It's very hard for women to think that because it feels selfish somehow. Be selfish. Just be selfish. You only have this one life. So live it to the best of your ability, but also to the best of your desires. Just do it. You are all that.
Ooh, I love there's a title for a book. Good title for a book. You are all that. I don't know. You might have to come up with a character for that. And that's the story we're all trying to live. And that's the invitation with the podcast. And I'm on the journey with my audience. I've made many pivots but yes, the creative path is one I'm trying to open up to. So for those of you on that creative path too, this is your invitation. Or if you're just pivoting, be all that. Is that what I love that? That's so great. We need that. I could talk to you all day. You have such a beautiful heart. I love your life perspective. And every time you share, I feel like we take away so much wisdom. I wish you the most success with all of these books. And I think after you've shared now about what this next one's about, everyone's going to go pre-order. So I'll share all of the links on the podcast page. So everyone listening, share this interview with a friend. And on your podcast page will be all of Alka's links. But for those who are just listening and want to hear you, tell us, where do you like to hang out?
My Instagram handle is the Alka Joshi, and you will learn about the book reveal on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock Pacific time.
Awesome.
For 6 days in Bombay. And please do pre-order 6 days in Bombay. We would love that. And you can find it online at your local bookstore. You can find it on Amazon, Target, Costco, Walmart, wherever it is that books are sold, you will find 6 days in Bombay. And I think it's going to take you on a European journey. Even if you can't make it out there, you will feel like you are on a European journey.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to learn more about her story through this character you've created and to see how it ends for her, to what we discover about what really happened to her so that she gets that closure. I think it's fascinating. And all the links I'll have them easily accessible with a link to the book. And I know it's going to be another huge success. And keep us posted about the Netflix series. Everyone pay attention for when it comes out. It'll be called The Henna Artist.
Yes.
Amazing. And I want to see you in there. You'll have to tell me. I want to see you somewhere on the set in the actual show. So, Alka, thank you for coming back on. Truly such a pleasure. And you're such a talented, beautiful artist in so many ways. And so I'm just honored to have you back. And thank you for the wisdom and the inspiration today.
Thank you, Michele. I loved being here. You are a great interviewer, and I am now going to be on a high for the rest of my day.
Oh, good. I hope so. Thank you. Hey, friend, I have one request before we sign off today. If you've gained any value from any of the interviews that you've tuned into, would you take just 1 minute and leave a 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcasts? It's actually how more women can find the show, and I want to continue growing a community of women who are loving themselves and living full on. So thank you for all of your support, and I look forward to being back with you next week. Bye for now.
This podcast is presented for entertainment and educational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to be a substitute for medical, mental health, or other professional advice. Seek out your trusted healthcare provider or other qualified professional for all matters dealing with your health and well-being. Any opinions or information provided by a guest are their own and not those of Michele Lamoureux or the company.